Welcome back to another fantastic episode of I'm going to Talk and You're going to Listen. This is part two, or depending on how you're counting these, part three of the Elon Musk saga. A lot has happened since the last episode. A lot of stuff is more clear, I'd say. Almost totally clear. I'm missing a few pieces, but I think anyway, blah, blah, blah. So I've got some notes here. Number one, this is in regards to the whole federal, all of the federal stuff now going on since January 20th, at least the stuff that I'm the most interested in, that's in the most kind of in the same vein of, what I try to cover around here. And trying to think of kind of like how to introduce this. Where we left off last time, they told everybody to go back to the office, all the federal people, and I told them all to go back to the office. And then everybody's like, own the libtards that have been at home, not working in their pajamas. And it just became this huge derogatory, people are at home in their pajamas. Again, even though in both private and public sector, people have been remote working since the 90s. My stepmom was working from home like in the very early 90s. This is not new. People are just jealous. And I think this was kind of the perfect culmination of the private sector folding and, not fighting hard enough. And they were mad at state and federal for still being able to work remote. And I think also two additional things were happening, which is all the stores were butthurt that nobody was buying their expensive food anymore. And the banks, and the city was butthurt because it wasn't getting taxes. And the banks were getting pissed off because commercial real estate is in free fall. So I guess that, just admit that you love taxes, and just admit that I guess you love the banks, because that's it. If you're a small business in a city, I don't know what to tell you. The taxes there are horrible. The crime there is horrible. So somebody brought it up. I can't remember who it was, but they said, this is like trying to fix the New York subway system by making more people go in the subways. This is trying to fix the city by sending more people in the city. It doesn't work that way. I've been saying this for years. So a lot more has happened since then. And so I want to go over that. And kind of, I guess, the spoiler alert to all of this, do I want to say like the end at the beginning? What has become the most obvious out of all of this is to be like the highest of the priority of things going on, I'd say, is the fact that Elon Musk has taken over the OPM, which is like the HR version of the government, which means he can see everybody's files and stuff. That in and of itself, I don't think would tell him very much, except it gives him the authority to message the whole entire government at the same time, which is interesting, but not altogether useful. But it is kind of like, it'd be like, Twitter if everybody had to read his messages, but now he's in charge of the OPM and everybody has to read his messages. So the whole federal government has to basically read whatever Elon Musk wants to say every single day. And we'll dive into that. Part two, he's in charge of the Treasury now, which means he can see all the money coming and going, which I think is far more interesting. But if you combine that with the fact that he's in charge of OPM, he can see every single thing about every single employee, and with the Treasury, he can see all the money coming in and out, or going out, I guess, really. And so I'm assuming putting those two things together, he can find out whatever it is that he's actually looking for, which I suspect we're not going to figure out until Monday, because he put out a tweet earlier that said, "LOL, the government doesn't work over the weekend, but I do." And in the OPM office, he moved the manager out, and then he moved in tons of couches and futons, and they're just working inside the OPM office 24 hours a day, which is insane. And I get everyone's like, "LOL, own the Dems. This is what real work looks like." It's like, real work is having a work-life balance where you can see your family. Like, they're acting like this is a video game launch or something. I get they want to work fast, but like, he hasn't told anybody what the scope is or even what he's looking for. He only says, he wants to figure out how to save $1 billion a day. Well, that's simple. And this kind of goes into further of my points. And he says he wants to save $1 trillion a year or something. And he says he can save $1 trillion next year or something. You can save $1 trillion now if you want. All you have to do is stop all foreign aid and close down all the federal buildings that they're not using. So they say they think they can shut down up to 70% of the federal buildings because, some of them are old and so on and so forth. Why not just do that? Why you want to own the libs so bad because they're working in pajamas and it just pisses you off so much. Except they also say they want to shut down 70% of offices. I'm telling you, you can't have both. I want you to think about that for a second. Think about how this stuff doesn't make sense. First of all. Second of all, the liberals never moved. They never moved. They still live next to those fucking buildings because they're all grandfathered in. They all own their houses. Okay? They're already grandfathered in and they already own their houses. So it doesn't cost them anything to fucking stay there. You're not owning anybody. They like going into the office. They're all social butterfly. Oh, well, they can be watched over more. No, they didn't do if they didn't do shit before the Rona, and they didn't do shit during the Rona, they're not going to do shit when they come back. Because their management's not being replaced. So you might go, oh, well, they gave them the... So part of what's going on is they're giving them all this kind of early retirement thing. By the way, none of this is like secret privileged information. It's all posted on the OPM website. By the way, this is called Fork in the Road. So if you're wondering why I call this Fork in the Road, that is the name of the initiative. Since Musk has taken over the OPM, he wanted to use some trendy startup techie cutesy fucking name for this thing, which just pisses off the government even more. You went, lol, own the stupid government that hasn't been doing anything. Well, it's not professional. Acting like a startup, stomping into the government and acting like a startup. Like, if you want to have a merit-based system, and that's what he wants, they get rid of all the DEI, which saved them a little bit of money, but then all the training, which is more like money laundering, that probably saved them a ton of money. But like, Musk has never acted like a manager. He's never acted professional. He acts like a toxic asshole. And the problem is, like, if you want to have a merit-based system, you can't go around telling people to fuck your face and I'm going to bring a war on you like you've never seen. And, he quotes movies and stuff. That's completely fucking lost on most Americans. That's him talking to a very niche portion of his base, which are basically NPCs. So he's stomping into an area without having like earned it. Like, what he should have done is come into this and actually acted mature and professional. So all of the emails have been published on which is Reddit, which it should be no surprise that's a far left, uh, forum. R/Fed News. All of the emails have been leaked there. They're extremely unprofessional. They look like scam emails, and what a lot of people have pointed out is these emails look almost identical to the Twitter layoff emails and the Meta, aka Facebook, layoff emails. If you're going to go do a bunch of tech bro shit, you can go do tech bro shit in tech bro land. Going into the government and acting like a tech bro is not going to earn you respect. And people aren't going to fear you either. They're just going to think you're fucking retarded, and they're going to ignore you. And because you don't sound like them. You're not using the words that they're used to having be used. These people have been doing this forever. It's the only thing they've been doing forever, for the most part. And a lot of the stuff that they do doesn't translate into the private sector. There's no, private IRS or anything. There's no, if you work for the unemployment office, there's no private unemployment office. If you work for the post office doesn't exactly count. But like the DMV, like these people have been doing their one job their whole life, and they read this shit and it doesn't use the words that they're used to, and they say, fuck this idiot, and they go back to work. Because again, most of them are just worker bees that are just working. They're just chipping away on the same thing that they've been chipping away on forever. They're not people sitting in their pajamas not doing anything. So when people say, oh, well, you could lose 99% of the government. Oh, yeah, and then Musk said, oh, well, like, you could automate so much of their work with a mouse clicker. And they're like, what the fuck are you talking about? And so I'm like, I can't remember exactly what percentage, if he indicated a percentage of people that could just be replaced with a mouse clicker. But it's like, could you replace the DMV with the Social Security office? Like, so basically he's talking about, like, you could automate the government. And it's like, and then so I'm like, okay, yeah, you could totally automate the IRS. Or just completely disband the IRS. Like, when he says this, like, weird shit, it's like, he doesn't bother to explain what the fuck he's talking about. And so what happens is it comes off as trolling and shit talking and shit posting. And my point to all this is, like, he's not getting his desired effect unless his desired effect is to just shit on people and own the libs, and his little Harbor Seal NPCs clap for him. Like, if you're going to, you need to, if you're going to, like, go into somewhere and fix things, you have to, like, rally everybody behind you. You have to tell them what the game plan is. You got to tell them the direction you're moving. Most people are just looking for leadership. Yes, there's some snowflakes, and there's people that don't know which bathroom to use, and the DEI stuff is a lot of money laundering. There's a lot of money laundering going on. Sure. And there's a lot of policymakers that have been laundering a lot of money. Sure. But that's not that many people. So that isn't going to track down the people who are low performers. So unless he's planning on going through the OPM and going through everybody's HR records and finding all the low performers and then, like, pipping them all, somehow going through 2 million government records and then pipping all the low performers, like, I guess he could do that, and they've kind of alluded to that. That's why I'm bringing that up. is it's coming back to me now, along with exactly what Twitter did and exactly what Meta did. They told them they're getting rid of the low performers. So maybe that's what they're doing. Maybe, okay. And then another part of it is I think they want to get rid of everybody that's in probation, because again, all these emails are leaked on r/Fed News. Is that what I said? r/Fed News. All these emails are leaked. Yeah. So that none of this is secret. The belief is that they want to get rid of everyone on probation, which they're well within their power to do, and then they said they want to get rid of all the low performers, and they also said they want to raise raise the performance of everybody else. The problem is, like, unless they cascade down new performance criteria and then train everybody on what the fuck that means, everybody's already kind of just chipping away with like whatever metrics they have, right? And so if you fire a shit ton of people and you freeze hiring and then you scare a bunch of more people out, because there's early retirement. That's the other thing, is people out, again, all these emails are leaked. That's how I know all this shit. They've been talking about it for days on that Reddit site. They have a couple more days to accept this early retirement. But here's the thing. They've pissed off and confused everybody so bad. Again, like, they're not going to get their desired results. If they wanted people to take that, they would have used professional language. The emails were extremely unprofessional. They look like some kind of a scam. They look like a high school intern wrote them and didn't even bother to run them through ChatGPT. Looks like someone just used voice to text and spurted out some retarded shit. So it doesn't use the right words. It's written really informally. It went out to 2 million people. And so instead of them having it taken seriously and people like genuinely, legitimately thinking about it and having, an honest conversation with their family and, looking at the whole thing objectively, people were wondering if it was even real, if it was even a scam. Again, I've been reading Reddit for like 2 or 3 days, just trying to like absorb the whole thing before I did this podcast. And it's all over the spectrum. Like, if people don't think the email's even real, all you've managed to do is troll the shit out of them. And then a bunch of your Harbor Seal retard NPCs fucking clap for you and think you're so good for owning the libs. Like, it doesn't produce the desired result. Instead, you're just punishing and confusing them all. And I guess if you just hate the government so much that you think it's just funny to harass the shit out of people who are just kind of plugging away, like, whoever, and maybe this is like the short version of the whole thing, whoever's pissed you off in the government, I'm telling you now, they're probably not going to be bothered by this. Like, that's the thing. The only thing you could skip almost all. Yeah, do some boomers need to retire? Sure. Is this going to help them retire? Again, probably not, because they didn't bother to word it in a way that, people were going to recognize it and take it seriously until, the time is almost up on it. Is this going to get rid of people who don't do shit? No, because even though it's like 8 months of pay for free, these people have already coasted their whole lives not doing shit. So they don't have anything to be scared of. And Musk hasn't said what departments he wants to shut down, so people don't really have any idea if they even should be afraid or not. Instead, they all just kind of get galvanized and get into their cuddle puddles and say how they're going to resist everything. Because if you understand anything about the left, if you listen to anything I ever tell you, is that the left resists everything. Whatever the current thing is that's going on, they resist it no matter what. If you don't find the way to market it right and sell it to them right, and then gradually lead them there, you try to change things too fast and they freak out. Now, do some things need to be changed fast? Sure. Some things you could lop off and not really scare them. Like you could have done the DEI, you could have gotten rid of all the DEI stuff and then let them stay home. You could have gotten rid of all the offices and let them stay home. You could have given them the early retirement and actually worded it properly and actually presented it to everybody through channels that they're actually used to, and actually had the frequently asked questions ready first instead of like 2 or 3 days later after everybody thought it was a scam. And so what you have now is, instead of winning the hearts and minds of them, all he's managed to do is galvanize them, and they're starting their little resistance puddles. And they had their pity party, which is they always do. They always pout, and then after they pout, they go figure out what they think they can do about it. So they're going to resist, and they're going to try to push back, and they're going to do all the things that they do. They're going to try to protest and put together call centers. They're going to go to encrypted chats. They're going to do the same shit they always do. Because Musk thinks he's so fucking badass that he couldn't be bothered to read the room, but he's such an arrogant, narcissistic, toxic asshole. And again, some people just love this chaos and they just want the whole government to go away. Can a lot of it go away? And sure, do we need the IRS? Do we need the Department of Education? Do we need the EPA? Do we need the ATF? I'd argue, the FCC could be revamped and do a lot better with things like scam calls and stuff like and swatting. I think so. I think there's room in the world for the FCC. But like, there really is a severe energy crisis going on right now. So you can't just like gut the DOE, right? That's one example. You can't gut Customs and Border Protection, right? Like, we're gonna have a war at the border, maybe both borders, right? So like, you can't cut the DoD. Now, you might think, well, can you cut the FBI? I think some of the FBI can be saved, but again, if you go back and watch Obamagate with Dean Cain and Christy Swanson, I think like you'll see like how much the FBI needs to be cleaned out. But like, it can be saved. Like, you still need some kind of an FBI function. You still need, the U.S. Marshals. You still need some of that. If there's like some crazy international manhunt going down, you still need Scully and Mulder. Shout out X-Files. So what I'm saying is like, yeah, I mean, do we really need the DMV? Maybe if we get rid of the illegals, maybe we don't need the DMV as much. I don't know. But I can tell you that they're already trying to replace the DMV with kiosks. I forgot if I brought that up last episode. So, I mean, I think the DMV is probably on its way out. The post office isn't going anywhere. Hopefully they get some more money. Shout out JH and everything USPS. He covers that really well. Like, we need a really strong, mail, post office backbone. We need really strong infrastructure. Like, we still need the Department of Transportation. It just needs to be ran by somebody who's actually competent. Not, Bob the Builder. I'm sure there's more 3-letter agencies I'm thinking of. I don't know what the Department of Agriculture does, except for probably, funnel money through preferred agriculture providers and just screw us when inevitably the next bird flu bullshit happens because our agriculture is not decentralized like it should be. So a lot of those can go away, right? And a lot of them need to be revamped. Like I get that, but it's how you sell it, right? This is about marketing. I don't think America would freak out if they're like the ATF is going to sleep. Good night, ATF. Like there wouldn't be a massive outcry. You can tell on that website there's a couple people freaking out about half the FBI getting gutted because of the whole J6 thing. But honestly, it was only 2 or 3 people freaking out about the FBI, and there was FBI people in there. There was a bunch of FBI people in there, and they were saying that nothing was going on. So that was interesting. And then people started arguing with the FBI people. I'm like, oh, this is fucking crazy. There was a lot of DOD people. There was a lot of DOD people in there too. Um, I mean, they were. You want to talk about Fed posting? That's probably half of those people were Fed posting stuff. I mean, it was really interesting. Um, and of course, Reddit is extremely far left, which means they were censoring everything that wasn't ultra supportive of this. But that still gives you like a really good idea of what's going on because they were saying, haha, this is. There was people in there that were flat out saying, haha, this is only going to get the Trump people fired because the Trump people moved out. There was people saying, haha, there's going to be Trump people let go and they deserve this. But then, ironically, there was other people saying, oh no, we're all going to get fired and be replaced by Trump loyalists, which is pretty funny because that's impossible because there aren't Trump loyalists in DC. So the only way that works is if you decentralize. Like if they decentralize the buildings. So like if they sold a bunch of buildings in DC and then they moved the buildings to conservative areas and then they rehire people. What was interesting though is somebody brought it up and said that they tried that. I want to say it was in Atlanta. Was it the Bureau of Land Management? They tried to move the Bureau of Land Management, which I don't even want to talk about that 3-letter agency. They tried to move them, and I guess like they couldn't really get people to relocate. I don't know why Atlanta is such an amazing place, right, you guys? Shout out in the chat for all you Atlanteans that love Atlanta so much and think that that's a great place to have a giant facility. um, Decentralizing two areas that are overwhelmingly conservative will get you a bunch of loyalists, but that's not what they're doing, or at least that's not what they're doing anytime soon, because they would have to get the funding for the buildings. They would have to try to find a building that maybe already met their requirements. They would have to have enough parking. There'd have to be enough food, and if they are relocating people, they're not really talking about it. Or if they're planning on relocating people, they're not talking about it. Maybe that'll come next week. I gotta say, there's so much information pouring out between Twitter and that Reddit thread that it is like almost minute by minute stuff. So like next week there could be way more. Like for example, they totally chopped up the CDC website. I think I heard they got rid of all the vaccine stuff. They also chopped up apparently the USDA website to get rid of all the climate change stuff. And I think they have stopped a lot of foreign aid, and I think they have stopped a lot of NGO stuff. NSAID, and I still don't completely understand NSAID, but I think that's my brain's having a foggy moment all of a sudden. I think that's foreign aid, or not foreign aid, like NGO aid or something, like all the stupid little programs that we don't need, that everyone has become reliant on. And I've talked about those before. There's one in Portland where they give out drugs to drug addicts basically on school property. So some of that shit is really whack. I'm by no means saying that all these changes are bad. What I'm saying is, like, optics are extremely important. You can't just come into somebody's house and shit on the floor and then tell them to clean it up, or just kick them out of their own house after shitting on their floor. I don't know. I don't know a good metaphor. Like, you have to. It's about hearts and minds. It's about winning hearts and minds, right? My friend used to tell me there's like three types of people. There's people that kind of lean away from your idea. There's people that are kind of in the middle, and then there's people that are already leaning towards your idea. The problem with the government is that they already can't stand Musk, period. In fact, most people can't stand him because he's pissed almost everybody off by now. If you remember, first he said he wanted people to work for Doge for 80 hours a week without pay at all, and thought that was just the funniest fucking thing on the planet. And then he called everybody retards with shit culture and that we don't work hard. That didn't go over well. And then he said he's going to replace everybody with H-1Bs. That didn't go over well. And then he said he's going to make everybody go back to the office. And then he said he's going to lay everybody off. and then the next thing you know, it's like, no, actually he's the one in the office working 24 hours a day with futons and mattresses and shit. It's like, make up your fucking mind. And I get it. Like, I get the tism, you know. I get, he could just be completely fucking jacked up on Adderall. I don't know. But the problem, and this is just a problem with Twitter in general, he doesn't have I think he has a plan, and it may even be a decent plan, but like, the tweets are just so out of context that he comes off as a child just completely spurging out random shit, which is probably what everybody thought about Orange Man, although Orange Man's tweets made sense if you were following along and paying attention, but this stuff, like, this is like 99% of the conversations in his brain with Musk, and then he says like 1% of it, and you gotta try to figure out what the fuck is going on. Because he thinks everything is so funny. He's like, oh, people are acting like we're taking away money from panda bears and zebras or something. It's like, no, nobody thinks that. But here's the thing, like, tell me how you're gonna hunt down child traffickers, Tell me how we're not gonna have another spending bill with hundreds of billions of dollars of bullshit in it. Like, tell us the plan. Like, I'm sure there's a plan, and actually now I'm starting to realize that it is probably so much of an insanely complicated plan that I might not even be able to understand it. But like, bits and pieces of it are starting to make sense. And people, remember people used to say, trust the plan, trust the plan. Like, I think he has a plan, and I think he doesn't want to tell anybody. And I know one of you says, well, he can't say what the plan is because then the other side will know what the plan is. And you're actually right. Like, they were saying on the Reddit that he kicked everybody out of the OPM office so that there would be no leaks of what he was about to do. And so he didn't want to involve anybody that would actually, be able to wordsmith his document properly. It was kind of like, even if this shit leaked, I don't know how big of a deal it would have been. Because if he had just rolled out the communications properly, here's what I'm trying to say. I think most of what he's trying to do would probably be really well received if he just explained it in a way that people can understand. He speaks like autistic tech bro language. And I don't know, have you ever tried to like talk to engineers before? You know, you got to talk to engineers a certain way. You got to talk to IT people a certain way. Well, you got to talk to the government a certain way too. They're like dinosaurs, okay? And they see shit they don't understand, and they just go back to whatever it is they're doing because they've weathered out the storm so many times that they just keep chipping away on what they're doing. And he's lost. So what I'm trying to say, that whole, you know, people that lean away, people lean in the middle, people that lean towards you. He lost a lot of people that probably would have agreed with him, but now he's just pissed everybody off again, because just like the H1B thing, and he doesn't read the fucking room because he thinks everyone he's so used to everybody just clapping for everything that he says on Twitter that he didn't realize that the government's not like that. The government is, at least attitude wise, a lot of them are like Reddit, ironically, which is why Reddit is such a funny microcosm for this whole thing. They by and large just kind of want to chip away and doing what they're doing. The only making them all go back to the office, they're just going to turn into social butterflies again. And I have never on this planet, in all my years, seen anybody go through and just fire all the social butterflies. Again, unless you have a really, really, really good performance-based system, which I think they're planning on doing. But again, if you wanted to scare the piss out of everybody and made them take the early retirement, instead of just like blaming everybody for not doing anything, which is all he ever does, if he had just said, you know, I know there's some of you out there that are just coasting, you know, there's some people that are older that are just coasting. There's some people that are younger that are just coasting. There's some people that have failed up that have no fucking clue what they're doing. And you know, he could have said, you know, if you're one of those, I encourage you to take this severance because we're putting in new performance metrics, and if your ass isn't busy, you're going to get cut. And that's because just, you know, private and public, you know them, I know them. There's people who just don't do shit. And even when you give them something to do, it's not even that they don't want to do it, they just can't. I call it the like the bartender philosophy. There's just some people that aren't that just can't function at a high enough level to do anything. There's some people that can but won't, and there's some people that can't that don't even try. They'll be found out with performance based metrics. You don't have to troll the shit out of everybody. Like, but here's kind of the pudding on the popsicle or whatever. It's not really gonna matter in a few months anyway, because funding is gonna run out. It runs out. Oh shoot, where did I put it in here? It runs out in March. Oh hi March. And so there's going to be like a crossroads anyway. And the crossroads is, I think Orange Man wanted there to be no debt ceiling, which is really weird. But then they said, you know, he doesn't want a debt ceiling because he doesn't want the debt ceiling looming over his head. But like, just cut everything we don't fucking need. And here's the thing, I can't remember who on Twitter said this, but like, sooner or later, Social Security is going to have to go bye-bye. Sooner or later, Medicare and Medicaid are going to have to go bye-bye. That fucking sucks, but it's either going to be that or the government just collapses anyway. Okay? Do you need another fucking iPhone? Do you need coffee every day? I know some people are living paycheck to paycheck and it's hard because they're on a fixed income and da-da-da-da-da. But I also know there's grandmas out there that don't even have cell phones. Like, there are ways to bring housing back down to affordable levels. There's ways to bring vehicles and gas back down to affordable levels. And there's going to have to be a lot of really hard discussions. And I swear, so much of this is still at the state level, whether it's them taking away, your Second Amendment, or just like ludicrous amounts of state level taxes, whether it's income tax or property taxes or whatever. Like, taxes are still insane. If the states wanted to do tax relief, they could do it now. If federal wants to do tax relief, they could do it now. And so let's see, maybe your Medicare or Medicaid, no, I mean your Social Security, maybe your Social Security would actually go further if they lowered your taxes. Maybe your Medicare and Medicaid would be better if they could actually lower how fucked everything is, with all the hospital insurances and shit now. Like, there's ways to get through this if they can cut enough spending and if they can cut enough regulation. Same thing with like cheaper vehicles. Like, on my little recording software right now, this fucking ad for the Rivian keeps popping up. Isn't that like an $80,000 like shitty EV truck that nobody wants? Like, if Orange Man cuts enough regulation, there could be $10,000, like no trim, Toyotas that everybody could get into, or Ford. Ford makes like an entry level F-150 with all the trim shit cut out of it, and everyone could go back to having like an affordable work truck. Like, and we could get gas under $1 again. Like, this is shit that we can do, and then it doesn't have to be like a race to the bottom anymore. But instead, they're so pissed at the government that they're just shitting on them and not even trying to, I don't know, win some over, try to do this in some kind of respectful way. And you might think, no, fuck, they don't need to, we don't need to respect them. They're the enemy. I've seen that so much. The government's the enemy. It's like, well, they're treating them the same way that they treat their own tech companies. Were their own tech companies the enemies to you? Yeah, Twitter was 90% of Twitter was part of the woke mob. Like, okay, maybe, but what about when Nike decided to restructure because a bunch of consultants took over, and Nike people who have been making Nike a booming success forever, they just fucking laid off all of them. Like, did they deserve that? They weren't underperforming. Like, this is about performance, right? Because once these people get laid off, they are all going to be unhireable based off of performance metrics that nobody's even going to know if it's real or not. And so a lot of what they were saying on the Reddit is that they were all going to go download all of their performance reviews. That way, if they all got laid off, at least if they got hired somewhere else, they would have their performance reviews in hand to prove that they weren't laid off for performance reasons. And I thought that was really smart. And I bet you the people at Meta and Twitter, I bet you they wish they could have done that too. Because, like, the people on Reddit were blaming the media, but I think, at least with Meta, I think that was like really literally in their email when they laid people off, as they were saying, like, we're cutting all the lowest performers, which means if you're hiring and a bunch of Meta people show up and on all their resumes they say they just came from Meta, you're getting the absolute lowest performers, which is pretty fucked up. You're basically sentencing those people to death, which is really weird. It's really weird because IT wages have been stale for so long, and inflation has driven the prices of everything so high. How the fuck do you expect anybody to pay for anything anymore? Or has everyone lost their humanity so much, as long as they can be pissed at somebody else and make everyone else suffer, that somehow we all suffer together? I guess, like, it just, everyone is like equally fucked or something. Like, can't we have a world where we kick the illegals out and knock all the fucking H-1B visa shit off and then build America back up and not have everyone fucking hate each other. Like, so much of this just seems like full of hate, and it's like it's coming from the wrong place. And you might say, well, those government people, they hate us. They hate us, those rascals. There are some policymakers that are fucking everybody. There are lobbyists that are lining their own pockets. There are foreign interests that are putting their own countries ahead of ours. But that's a minority. And that shit should pretty easily be able to be fixed. You know, I do think, a lot of the three letters could go to sleep. I don't think this is a very dignified way of doing it. But also, like, I'm just thinking about the economy in general, of like laying off, even if you could theoretically lay off. I think I brought this up a couple episodes ago. Even if you could lay off hundreds of thousands of people, I can't even fucking imagine what the impact of the economy would be, and you're dooming all of them. And I say that because Orange Man hasn't propped up the private side yet to be able to support laying off that many people. Instead, actually what's happening is the private side is still laying off metric shit tons of people. Like, we are still in a recession. I'm not saying that some of the three letters don't need to go to sleep. And they are offering severance for all of them for up to 8 months. What I'm saying is, like, the timing of this isn't great. I feel like some of these layoffs could be definitely needed to be prioritized. But I also think they should have had new buildings in place so they could decentralize, and then you could start moving people over, and you'd have business continuity with the government. Like, the way this stands, I don't even know if we're going to have government continuity, because there's a hiring freeze, and if they let everyone on probation go, and they froze everything even right in the middle of interviews, unless you want to work for the Army, or unless you want to work for ICE, CBP, they're all hiring. Or you want to go to the border and protect the border, they're hiring. But which, don't get me wrong, like, that would be kind of dope. If I was like single, that would be cool. But the thing is, like, there was other kind of faster ways they could have saved money. Like, just stop all the shitty spending. Stop all the foreign aid. Like, sell the buildings. That's billions and billions and billions and billions and billions of dollars. And so I still don't know what they're looking for. I don't know if they're looking for money laundering. I don't know if they're looking for spies. Don't know. But I'm looking through my notes here really quick. Yeah, the tariffs did go in. The tariffs with Mexico and Canada are kind of funny. I cannot take those seriously. But the Chinese one, I believe, is 10%. And that was just announced in the last couple hours. So we'll see if that affects anything. Like, if we can get some tariffs, if we can get some tax breaks, like, you can get relief to Americans. Like, if you decentralize, you can employ the rural areas. But a lot of this employment means there's going to have to be, like, remote work again, because nobody can afford to move. That's why this draining the swamp thing doesn't work. Everyone in DC is grandfathered in. They already have paid off houses, or they have low or no interest houses. Making them go back, they're already there. But none of those people can move. So if you decentralize it, you can go employ a bunch of rural people that, maybe everyone will trust them a little. Maybe a lot of people will trust them more. I don't know. It's hard to say, but the Reddit has this fear of, like, Trump loyalists. It's like, no, there's no Trump loyalists in DC. It's just you it's just you guys going back to DC. Um, and I think they want to get rid of the policymakers, which by and large is the policymakers that got us into this mess, and the lobbyists and the foreign interests, and people that are money laundering and stuff. So, I don't know. So I guess I want to say, oh yeah, I was in the city recently for something, and I got food somewhere just because I wanted a cheeseburger, and it was $30, just shy of $30 for a cheeseburger, fries, and a lemonade, and then a little tip. It was 30, almost $30, 20, 27, 28 bucks, something like that. So nobody's you make people go back to work 5 days a week. They're not fucking eating out every day. I tell you that. I don't think it's really going to help all the local people that much, all the local vendors. If the cities wanted to help the local vendors so bad, they would just lower taxes. Ta-da! Like, this is about commercial real estate. This is about taxes. If you can't stand the cities, then you should be pro relocation and pro work from home. Because you want to bring jobs to the rural areas, this is how you do it. You don't drain the swamp by making all the swamp people go back to the swamp. I want you to understand that. So, I think I covered all my points. Oh, no, let's talk about civil unrest for a second. So, not only do the three-letter agencies say they're going to be protesting here in a few days, you still have all the pro-Hamas people that are still protesting for some reason. I think because they didn't want a ceasefire. But the new big to do for protesting is all of the illegals. There are illegals protesting in every major protesting city that you can think of, and some of them are pretty big. So, like I would say, you need to trip check ICE. What they say, ICE is deporting about 1,000 people a week. I think like ICE is working pretty fast, and they're getting some pretty bad hombres out of the country. They're flying them off in like DC-130s, handcuffed, and dropping them back off to their own countries. Because again, these people, some of them are very bad. You don't want to just fly them on a normal flight, obviously. I thought that'd be obvious to people, but it wasn't. So I'd say that. So chances are you live in an area that's still not cleaned out of illegals yet. So you got to wait for ICE to come. I think there is a new ICE hotline. And I just saw a thing that said ICE is going to start working with the bounty hunters. Like if you're part of the bounty hunter guild clan thing. So that's definitely interesting. I was wondering how they were going to staff up. So that's really interesting. So you just, I think it maybe I'll end with this. The left, ironically, maybe just because they're so uneducated or whatever, can't stand the government because they think the government, is genociding babies in Palestine. Conservatives can't stand the government because they think they don't do anything or they just work too slow. And then you're telling the government to go back in the office when they know everybody's going to be protesting them at their buildings. Even the people in the government are going to be protesting at their own buildings. So this is just, it's going to be weird. It's going to be weird for, yeah, I guess Musk was suggesting to drug test all the federal employees when they came back, as if the federal government uses street drugs or something, which is the funniest damn thing I've ever heard. It's so stupid that I don't even know what to say about it. I mean, people are on prescription meds, like they're not doing street drugs. That whole drug testing everybody thing is so fucking we're on drugs like 30 years ago shit. It's infuriating to me. The drug tests don't even work. You could have eaten like a piece of brownie, or a piece of cookie, like a month ago, and you'll flag for pot, and there's just like nothing you can do about it. Some of them you can't even test for, and it's just like you're not going to have people in the office on like meth and cocaine and shit because they're just going to be whacked out of their mind. It's going to be fucking obvious to everybody. So a lot of this shit is just like viral owning the libs, owning the government stuff, and it's just like it's not helping. It's not fixing everything. It's just trolling and terrorizing the shit out of people. Most of which just are doing their thing. They'll eventually get weeded out when the performance reviews come around. In the meantime, they're all going to be stressed the fuck out because people are leaving and people are quitting and people are unaliving themselves and they can't rehire and they can't backfill and they can't move people around, and people are going to be stressed out, and they're just going to, instead of trying to fix things because of the messaging, the branding, the marketing of this, they're just going to try to resist it all, and it's just going to be way harder and it's going to take way longer to fix. And I just wish they had spent a little bit of time explaining the whole thing. Just a little, just fucking for once. For once, if Musk would have just like finessed his shit a little bit instead of being such an egotistical, narcissistic, smug fucking asshole and got over himself for like 2 seconds. It's just like he has succeeded in doing is just getting everybody pissed off at him. Again, I guess I'll end with this. The interesting thing about that Reddit board I was telling you about, almost there was a couple people that were still like those mag-ats, which I think is fucking disgusting to dehumanize people like that. And there was a couple people that were pissed off about Orange Man, but the overwhelming amount of people knew immediately that it was Musk doing this. This is Musk's branding. It has him all over it, and he's bragging about it on Twitter. And so I thought that was interesting. Part of this, I'm sure, Orange Man, has directed him to do, but some of this stuff is like his branding, and it doesn't work, or at the very least, it's not as effective as it could be. Does that make sense? It's not as effective as it could be. If his goal was to just be like a bunch of got 'em and own the libs and just terrorize the shit out of everybody, then great. But like every time he does this, it makes the next thing that he wants to do that much harder. And it's going to be hard. I know he'll want to turn this around because it usually takes him a few days and he's like, oh fuck, what did I just do? And he's probably going to try to soften all of his messaging after he finds whatever it is he's looking for. It usually takes him about 3 days, and then he sobers up from whatever the fuck whatever he does, he sobers up from it and he goes, oh shit. I think the layoffs are still coming. I think the buyouts are still coming. I think the return to the office is still coming. I think the DEI is gone. A lot of the FBI is gone or will be gone. I think that people on probation are going to be gone. But I think he's going to realize that, oh fuck, I was kind of a dick, because that's what happens. So then he's going to soften his messaging a little bit and hopefully explain what the next part of the plan is, instead of just acting like an oxygen starved chucklehead, and start to calm people down and start trying to win them over, because this part is kind of the shaky part. But what comes next, the performance-based reviews and getting rid of the policymakers and getting rid of the management bloat and getting rid of the lobbyists and getting rid of the foreign aid is what's actually going to make a lasting difference. So I'll leave you all with that. And I think I got through all of my notes. So yeah, this will be called the, if you want to look it up on opm.gov, it's called Fork in the Road. And if you want to look on the Reddit, it's called r/Fed News. This is all been published. All the emails, all the FAQs, and all of it's been published on those two places, and some of Musk's stuff on Twitter. So those are the sources, and I'm probably going to do one more episode on this when I actually figure out what the long-term plan is. But I hope this makes sense, and my heart goes out to all the people who are just absolutely fucked right now because they either moved because they wanted a safer life and they wanted to find a place with lower taxes. They wanted to raise their kids in a nice, quiet, safe, rural area and serve their country through public service, and they're just getting fucked by a bunch of retards that think that this is hilarious. And my heart goes out to all the people who accepted full remote and don't even live next to a duty station at all. There's people that live hundreds of miles from a duty station that were never even assigned one. And this could have just been handled so much better if Musk had literally fucking asked anybody what the hell he was doing. And he lost so much credibility by just acting like a fucking clueless, narcissistic idiot to own the libs so he could get a couple of little zingers and everyone could harbor seal clap for him. Like, he could have won a lot of support, but he just doesn't give a fuck, and that's really too bad. And that's why you cannot trust these corptocracy rich fucking elites, because none of them care. We have to just watch out for each other and work on our local stuff and keep each other going. And the only way we get through this is together. There's still time to prep, and just take care of each other. And remember that when this is all over, there has to be reconciliation. Most of these people, like, didn't fuck you over, okay? There's a lot of them, sure. There's probably a lot of them that could retire. There's a lot of them maybe that are just bloat. But like, until those people have consequences, the only people that are getting fucked are people just like you and me. And those are the people that we should be taking care of. The snowflakes are freaking out, but this isn't going to do anything to them. They're all going to go back to the office and be fine until there's performance-based ways of pipping them out. So we'll see. Aside from a couple of DEI positions, just keep an open mind about all this, because this is a lot, and unfortunately right now, the vast majority of people that are getting fucked are people just like you and me. They're not the people that cause the problems. That's where we have to get for corrective actions and to fix things, is those people have to be addressed. And if we don't get there, a lot of people suffered for nothing. And this country won't be fixed. This will just be another blunder in the footnote of Musk's thinking he can just fire his way through everything. And the government is not the same as Twitter. Twitter had 90% of the people doing fucking DEI shit and fucking with everything. The government doesn't. The government is way more nuanced and complex. So I hope in the end everybody can reconcile and that this doesn't turn into a giant witch hunt, civil war fucking thing. You know me, I just want everyone to leave everyone alone, and I want everything to be okay. And I hope there's a way that we get through this where everything's okay without everyone hating each other. It just seems like there's way too much hate revolving around this. So anyway, y'all take care and leave a comment down below, and it helps me keep energized to keep doing these. Then I'll do another one when there's another big chunk of info and I figure more of this out. So y'all take care. Bye.
I wanted to work for public service to try to make a difference. I moved out of the cities because it got too dangerous. I swore an oath to uphold and protect. Then I got told if I don't come back, it's my last check. We work from home just fine. Our farm is an office in the spruce and pines. Did y'all forget that it's conservatives living in rural areas? Did y'all forget it's mostly lefties living in the cities? And the cities. How do you expect to trade a swamp if you force everyone back? The idiots still live there while we all moved out, so we don't get attacked. Last I checked, you wanted people to work there that would fix things. The last time I checked, you wanted high performers. The cities are still full of the people who made them that way. Do you really think that's gonna fix it like they say about it? Just fine. A farm is an office in the spruce and pines. Did y'all forget that it's conservatives living in rural areas? Did y'all forget it's mostly lefties living in the cities? And the cities. How the hell do you expect to trade a swamp if you force everyone back? The idiots still live there while we all moved out, so we don't get attacked. Last I checked, you wanted people who worked there that would fix things. The last time I checked, you wanted high performers. The cities are still full of the people who made them that way. Do you really think this gonna fix it like they say? Think about it. We work from home just fine. Our farm is an office in the spruce and pines. Did y'all forget that it's conservatives living in rural areas? Did y'all forget it's mostly lefties living in the cities? And the cities. How the hell do you expect to trade a swamp if you force everyone back? The idiots still live there while we all moved out, so we don't get attacked. There's a race to the bottom and you can't help but see that the cities are still circling the drain. The only way is to leave and leave the cities to their fate, but instead you want everyone back, blinded by hate. We work from home just fine. Our farm is an office in the spruce and pines. Did y'all forget that it's conservatives living in rural areas? Did y'all forget it's mostly lefties living in the cities? And the cities. How the hell do you expect to trade a swamp if you force everyone back? The idiots still live there while we all moved out, so we don't get attacked. Decentralize, move offices to the rural areas. Make the rural areas vibrant with jobs again. Then you'll have the conservative servants that you want. You keep trying the same things and expecting different results. Controlling is fun, but that's the definition of insanity, and it's not gonna work. Did y'all forget that it's conservatives living in rural areas? Did y'all forget it's mostly lefties living in the city?